What's up,
Hey
y'all?
guys,
Hey, hey. What's up,
sorry
y'all?
we
This
are
is
running a little behind, but we here.
absolutely, absolutely. As
So I'm
always, what's up? What's up, y'all? This is Jay.
I'm Cece, and this is
Life after the L word.
live.
Live.
Um, so today is I'm sorry, this month is October, and a lot of people don't know that this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And this is
Absolutely.
something really close to me and Jay's. This is one of the things we're passionate about. And so we decided to make this a special episode and bring on two guest stars.
And we are
Or
so
speakers, I'm sorry.
we're just so grateful and thankful to have two speakers talk about something that we both experienced. And so we hope that our perspective is going to reach y'all because it's definitely something deep to us and our family.
Yes. So, babe, you want to go first on why this is so means so much to you, or you want me to start?
No, let me go, Mom. Let me go. Let me go.
Okay.
So about my background, growing up young, I can't really say that I saw domestic violence. It's not until I got older and maybe thought like then I understood because back when I was growing up, a lot of things were like closed door. So you didn't see it, but you might have heard it. And how I felt about it then, uh, at that age was, of course, I just couldn't see how a woman could do anything that would deserve any kind of thing, like verbally or physical. And that's how I felt then. Um, and what happened with me is that what I noticed is that the more things that I started getting into, the more aggressive I was with my lifestyle. And when I mean my life, I mean in all facets. I mean sports, I mean work, I mean relationships. I was more aggressive, and the more dominant I became, I noticed the faster my temper came,
Hmm.
and that's what began the down spiral. Because once I had a temper, then I could lose it. And what really happened, because me and C talk about it all the time, we were in and out of our life. Now, in the very beginning of our relationship, we didn't have, we didn't even raise our voice. But when I came back into her life, she had seen things, I had seen things. And to me, we were both very hard and dominant. And so when she would start to talk to me, I took it like not as a woman talking to me. I looked at it as anybody talking to me. And if my masculine or my masculinity was in question, I was definitely going to have to check that. And that's how I looked at it. Like, yo, you can't talk how you want to talk to me because nobody can. And I stopped looking at C as a woman, as a person, and I just didn't care. And I spiraled out of control. You couldn't say what you wanted to say. I'm a backtrack because as far as me as in other relationships, I would say that as best, my voice got loud. I was maybe verbal or I just looked, but I noticed that it progressed into what it became, where I just had a short fuse. I wouldn't let you talk loud to me. If I said I was done, I wanted to be done with that conversation. Now, the reverse, which happened to me, was C became the aggressor. And I took a back pedal because of my everything that I did. And so I was kind of at a stalemate where I knew what I could do, she knew what I could do, but she was more the aggressive and I was not. And that was different. And I would like to say that anything that I've ever done, I definitely felt, a shame of it, like a sorrow. It was embarrassing. It wasn't like I was a man because I really deep down, I thought I stood up and had, a discipline about myself. And so for me to do anything, I felt less than, and it was something that weighed on my conscience. But that's what I got, babe.
That was a good one. That's deep. For me, I grew up seeing domestic violence, and because I didn't address it before my real relationships, I eventually realized that I was repeating the cycle. But I wasn't initially. I wouldn't say I was the aggressor. I was the reactor, and my
Mm,
reactions were crazy.
yep.
And because I had been through that in my childhood, I didn't. I don't fight like I guess the average female would. Like I would go toe to toe with you, and
Yeah, it's more gangster style. I'm sorry.
so um with Jay, um, first met, we never even really yelled at each other. But by the time he came back to my life in a stable condition, I had been changed. I was rougher. I didn't care anymore. I said what I said, and my fists are gonna speak for me even louder than my words. And so, me and him actually eventually entered into a domestic violence relationship where both of us were attacking each other, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally as well. And thankfully, we were able to close that horrible chapter of our relationship and we're able to move forward. But
Absolutely.
our stories are why we decided to address domestic violence this month. Our
Right.
first guest is going to be Miss Vernita Howard, and she's going to tell her story. And when she's done, we'll introduce our next guest.
Yay. There go Miss Vernita.
Hey, Vernita.
Can you hear us?
I don't. Hey, Vernita.
Hey, how are
There you
you?
go. We back.
Hmm.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, we're gonna go start with Dewayne then. Give us
Yeah.
one moment. We're gonna introduce Dewayne.
There we go. Hey, Mr. Dwayne,
Hey, how are you?
Mr. Diligent. I'm awesome. Welcome to our show. This means a lot. And if you don't mind, would you like telling us about your passion about this particular subject and what brought you into this?
Excuse me. Yeah, my name is C. Dewayne Hinnant. Um, I'm an advocate for domestic violence. I actually don't have any personal experience as far as domestic violence. I grew up in a two-parent family home. I have three sisters, three nieces, and three daughters. I haven't seen any domestic violence in their
Wow.
relationships or involved in their families. Pretty much, I came to Durham and I started working for the city of Durham, and they had me on a domestic violence task force. And through that job, I started hearing cases of domestic violence, and that made me want to get involved. Me being involved and looking at cases, I started noticing patterns and stuff in other people's relationships and friends, coworkers, and some cycle patterns that came in my relationships. Um, when I started dating in Durham or started getting married in Durham, like I said, I had started noticing patterns. I was married at that point when I came here to Durham. But the one thing I didn't know is that how bad that the woman that I had married, that she wasn't healed from her domestic violence relation. Um,
Wow.
and which caused a lot of problems.
Hold up, wait, don't tell us too much. Don't tell us
Okay.
too much.
You about to give us the juice. Come on now.
Oh,
Let's
okay.
Yes, we
Okay.
just want to get a
I'm
background. So,
sorry. I'm sorry.
no, I like it though. That this is a different
okay.
yeah.
So let's go ahead and bring on Vernita. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Hey, Miss Renita. Victorious Renita. We done lost her again. There she go.
Vernita, unmute yourself. Okay, there we
Got it.
go. Okay,
Hey,
welcome, Vernita.
Hi. Hi.
Hey,
hey, welcome, welcome. Uh,
thank you so much for coming on. You're gonna go
Yes,
ahead and tell us your.
anytime.
You don't, have to, don't tell us the story yet. Just give us your background.
So I am a survivor of domestic violence. I am also now an advocate for domestic violence. I am a founder of Breaking the Silence on domestic violence because I don't want anyone to go through what I've been through. I'm a mother, wife, and a author. So that's pretty much my life in a nutshell.
okay, okay. Well, again, we appreciate you coming, and I just want to just dive into it. If you don't think, what you think, babe?
That sounds good to me, love.
Okay. So, Miss Vanita, For people who want to know, why not leave? A lot of people don't understand that, and that's probably my number one question when I'm having conversation is why don't they just leave? So what would you say?
And
So first of all, we
incorporate your story.
okay. So first of all, we need to let people know that leaving is not as easy as they think it is.
Right.
Leaving don't always mean that your life is protected. Most of the time when people leave, that's when they're killed. If you do not have a safety plan put in place, you do not have the right people, it can cost you your life. Staying can cost you your life, but leaving can as well.
Wow.
And do you
Thank
want
you.
to
I'm
get
just
a
one of the
personal story?
Go ahead, say that again. I'm Cece.
I'm sorry. Do you want to tell us a little bit of your story, or
So I got married at the age of 17. I am a daddy's girl, so we have our way with our fathers that they'll do some of the things that we want to. But I was pregnant, and I was raised, in a Christian based, home. And so my mother and father was together. I had an older sister. She was married. So she was providing. Her and her husband, was together with her first child. And so this was my first child. And being in a two-parent home, it just seemed like everything was smooth. Um, but you also need to do research on those that you are being entangled with. Um, got pregnant, and so I just felt like that would be the right thing to do, to get married, give my daughter the same thing that my parents gave me, a two-parent home.
I can
The
understand that.
difference is I really didn't know his background, because if I had researched that, I would have probably stayed single. Just we would co-parent instead of getting married and trying to do it that way. Y'all want me to keep going?
you know what we're having? It's an issue. Your mouth is not matching up with your words. So let's do this. Y'all come back, like leave out and come back in. You and
Okay.
Dwayne, yeah.
All right, hold on for a second, y'all. We about to jump in and jump out. There go Mr. Dwayne. So do you want to ask him a question, babe, or what we doing?
No, he's coming back in. So
All right,
I'm not
so
sure why we're having technical difficulties. Hopefully, you guys will stick with us. Either way, we're not about to do this episode again. So
no.
this is so important for us, and so we're just going to keep going with the flow and not let anything stop us. Hope you guys
Okay.
are liking this show so far. Babe,
What happened?
and Vernita Capri is sending you hearts. You see it?
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
Hey, Capri.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, Keisha.
Hey.
So Dwayne, since you were telling us our story, you want to go ahead and continue?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah. So what I was saying was is that I had recently, once I got to Durham, I was married, but the person
Hmm.
I was married to, I didn't realize that she wasn't healed from her last domestic violence, which caused problems in our marriage. She had trust issues, and she had trust issues from her last marriage, and she had addiction issues, things that I didn't know, and that I really wasn't, paying attention to. Like I said, even though I had just started out working in domestic violence, I didn't know the patterns, I didn't know what was going on with it. So, like I said, we eventually divorced, and then I married someone else that had gotten out of the domestic violence marriage also, um, and that caused because she had trust issues as well. Like I said, I couldn't wrap my head around what was going on with it as far as why we weren't mingling together as far as in a relationship. And I had to sit back and do some self inventory, and after doing some self inventory of my own, I had to realize that common factors was the women that I had married, which were three, they all had been abused. So, you know, common denominator, common factor in it was the abuse, and they weren't healed from it. So it was just, and two, I didn't exactly know how to communicate with someone who wasn't healed from being in a domestic violence relationship.
Yeah. Babe, yeah. I never even looked at it that way. But when you say it that way, like that's clearly what my issue was. I wasn't healed from watching domestic violence. And I think the world needs to know that women can be just as bad as men can be.
Oh,
But
absolutely. I
right,
totally
but
agree.
they're protected more so. So I know, babe, you had some questions you wanted to ask.
Yeah. So I guess my next question would be, and I want probably both of y'all to think about this, and we'll probably see. But do you think there are warning signs seen, like you can see them, or are they ignored, or do you think it's a little bit of both? Do you think you can see things as opposed to like a lot of questions are for how did they not know that this person was going to be that way? Do you think that's a hidden secret, or do you think you just don't want to see it? What do y'all think about that?
So I'm going to answer. The warning signs are there. Sometimes, as women, we overlook the signs. We will say, well, we can help him, or we can help him do better, or we'll blame ourselves. In reality, it's not us.
Mm,
Um, and a lot of times we try to see the best of a person, meaning like, well, this time, okay, so now I know his trigger. Let me not do that anymore. But on the flip side of it, and it could be vice versa, even with women, um, someone who's broken, who has trust issues or whatever, that man is like, oh, I can make her a better person. Oftentimes, I always tell people, when people get together, they do pillow talk. And they tell you everything the other person didn't do. They felt like that other person didn't do. So now you got this person trying to, okay, I'm not going to do what that last person done. I'm going to be a better person. But no matter how good you try to be, if they're broken, they're broken. It's
Mm.
nothing you can do to fix a broken person until they get the help that they need.
child.
You said a lot, right?
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I mean, it's something to think about. I mean, it's very interesting how there are a lot of excuses and people don't want to look at, that it's not as easy as, like TV makes it out to be. You know what I'm saying? It's real life, there's real emotions attached to these things.
Mhm.
Dwight, what do you think about that? You have
I
anything you
believe
want
it's
to
a little
add?
bit of both. Sure, I do. I believe it's a little bit of both. I believe women do ignore some of the signs. I believe from the male side, males are good at hiding the signs. We talk about, one of the things I talk about when I do advocate, or one of the patterns I see when I advocate is there is a honeymoon phase. There's a honeymoon phase that it's almost like you're glamored into seeing the best in all first 5 minutes or 5 weeks or 5 months of meeting someone. And then, you start noticing, other things, once an abuser has you comfortable, where you can, let your guard down a little bit and stuff like that, then, little things start to show up, little things here, little things there. Nothing too big, but then it starts to get, out of control. Lying, small little lies happen, then the big little lies happen, and so on and so on. So, like I said, it happens on both sides. Some, women or men are do ignore signs, but abusers are very good at hiding signs. they manipulate. I mean, that's um, that's one thing about most abusers. Well, pretty much all abusers, that they're good at manipulating people. Not just you as an abused person, but just everybody. They manipulate all kinds of people, your family, your friends, and everyone. So I mean, it's not like they're not. The game is to trick you into falling in love with me and not leaving.
Mm.
Okay. That's so.
Yeah.
Are there any kind of signs to look for that stick
Yes,
out?
I I think there are a lot of signs to look out for. One of the first things, someone who wants to get real involved with you very soon.
Okay.
Someone
Okay.
who someone who's very jealous.
Hmm.
A jealous person could be, a possessive person.
Mhm.
Okay, that's good. What do you think, Miss Bernita?
Um, Someone who wants to be that wants you all to themselves, like they don't want you around family. They don't want you to have friends. They're your best friend. You shouldn't, they need to
Mm.
know your every location. They put trackers on you pretty much like on your phone. It make it seem like, oh, I care. Those are some of the warning signs, I mean, to really look out for.
And they want to isolate you. And so you feel like so eventually your only means of outlet or anything, it's them. You no longer have your family and your friends because they don't know what's
Hmm.
happening. They just all of a sudden feel like you're just being funny. And so they literally become your everything.
Hmm.
That's so
Yeah,
true, babe. I like that. That's
yeah.
crazy. It just really sounds like the key is control.
Hmm. And Dwayne, I like how you because you're an advocate for men, correct?
I'm an advocate for everybody, not just
Yeah.
specifically men. I'm an advocate for everybody. I do. I try to advocate for men, but it's hard to get men to talk about domestic violence. One of the ways that I reach out is I try to reach out to the younger generation as far as men. For my generation, it's really hard to get men to talk about it or to even discuss
Absolutely.
it or even to accept it. Um, so I try to reach out to mothers. Mothers, if you have sons,
Mm.
this is
Mm.
things that you need to be wary of or worry about when your son brings home a certain kind of a daughter or a certain young lady that he's dating. Because a lot of this younger generation, the females will fight guys just as much as men will fight other women. So
Right.
it's like
Absolutely.
equal. It's like equal on both sides. It's just like they don't have any respect of some of them don't have any respect of being taught not putting your hands just on people, but not putting your hands on your mate.
Right. Right.
And I found that's why I really wanted to bring you on, Dwayne, because I know you're an advocate for everybody, but I noticed that you do speak about men. And so I was just like, you know what, this is a conversation that we need to have because a lot of people don't look at men as victims because, society says that men are these big creatures and they're the biggest, the strongest things on earth. So my question to you is, what do you say to those who feel like men can't be victims?
Men can be victims. Men can be victims of all kind of abuse, even physical, mental, financial, verbal. Men can be victims of all of it. It's like I said, it's the stereotype and the stigma associated with the domestic violence or abuse that men don't want to accept. And like I said, let me see how can I explain this. And I told you I was raised in a two-parent family home. I was always taught don't fight women. Don't fight women. Don't put your hands on. And I'm the youngest of five, so I have a sister that's 3 years older than me. So, but you would normal brothers and sisters they do fight. Normal brothers and sisters they do fight. But I was always taught you don't fight women. So that was always embedded in me that I don't fight women. So when it came to, a woman that wanted to fight or put hands on you, my 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 thing was to always walk away. But there are some women that's out here who will take it a step further. They know that your son or whatever male that's in your family has been raised that way. They will take it that step further to fight, be aggressive, or even abuse them other kind of ways where they start damaging. I know, we see videos on YouTube of women that burn clothes, tear up tennis shoes, even the woman that lit that man's car on fire. That kind of abuse happens. That kind of abuse happens. And like I said, there are women who will take it, each step, each it'll escalate. And the one thing I know about abuse is that when it happens, it only escalates from there. So it may start with a finger to your face. It may start with a finger to your face. It may start with a punch. It may end with a slap or a hit, but it also may end with a gunshot.
Mhm. And Dwayne, I don't know if you can see, but Capri Lewis said, yeah, most men won't even see a therapist. They see it as weak, which is sad. And
Well,
I completely agree. And when I was taking training courses to volunteer for Durham Crisis Response Center, I know a lot of people joke about this, about the joke from back in the day is make sure pay attention to, or you should carry the condom. The man should carry the condom because the woman might put holes in it. But I learned that a lot of times men will put holes in condoms to get the girl pregnant to try to keep a hold on her, and that is a form of abuse.
it is. It is. I know a woman who was she she was pregnant 4 times in 4 years, and she kept saying she literally like lost it. Like she literally lost it. She was like, every time I turn around, I'm always pregnant. She's like, I haven't healed physically. I haven't healed physically. But he was doing that to keep her isolated, home all the time. His
Yeah.
his thought process was that women should be, home barefoot and pregnant, and he tried to keep her barefoot and pregnant.
Yeah. So let's hear from Vernita.
So sometimes this is a bit emotional for me, but um, I'll just take you back to my personal experience with it. My husband isolate. I come from a really close knit family, and so my husband done what it took to. When we was in the household with my parents, he was like the loving husband. You know what I mean? Like he was just loving. And we moved from my parents' house to his father's house. And so now I have not only my husband controlling me, but his father too.
Mm.
Um, if I was to go out the door, it was like, oh, you need to call my son and let him know where you're going. It's my family outside. I wasn't used to that. But pregnant, trying to, raise my child to the best of my ability, trying to be married, and when I look back after learning so much about domestic violence, in the beginning I was thinking it was okay. This is love. My mom would tell my dad where she was going. It was no big issue, but it wasn't a control issue with my parents. With my husband, it was a control issue because he wanted to make sure he knew my whereabouts because he was doing other things. So a lot of signs was there. I just overlooked them. But when it comes to domestic violence, we need to be educated. We need to not just educate our women, but educate our children, educate our men. And like with our organization, we always say that if we start with the man, we might can change some things because we see the men as the head of our household. So if they have the knowledge and they come and they express it with us, we're going to listen, especially if that's our mate. But if we're just spreading the information to just the women per se, sometimes they'll keep that information because they're going through, they don't, they don't want anybody to know that they're going through. That makes sense.
Mhm.
So they keep information, don't want to share because they scare you're going to ask a question. Well, why are you looking that up? Why are you concerned about that? Are you going through? Or they don't see your boyfriend as that type of person to do those things.
Mhm.
And if you say
Yeah.
anything, it's like, oh, you're trying to bring down. And especially in our community, let's just be real. The first thing we hear is, if you say, well, he's beating me or whatever, why you always trying to bring our black males there?
Woo. Woo. Yes.
I'm I'm glad. Look, listen. I'm glad she just said that because that just makes me want to ask the question. What do you say to people that blame the victims?
We see that every day. Like they blame they blame you for everything. They blame you for expressing how you feel. They blame you. What did you do? And one of the most common questions we hear is, well, what did you do to make him act that way? In my situation, if I would disagree with him, it turned physical. If I would voice my opinion, it turned physical. But I was so busy trying to mirror what my sister had, what my parents had, that I was just taking whatever. But in the end, it didn't just hurt me. And this is what I want women and men to understand. If you have children in that household, it do not just hurt you. Your children are more they're more knowledgeable about what's going on. You don't think if they hear you screaming and arguing late at night that they're not waking up, probably praying that, you don't kill each other.
Mhm.
It's a lot. My situation had a toll on my children. So I would say to any woman, like, don't go through it. Get you a safety plan, leave. Because it don't just affect you, it affects your children. It affects your family as a whole.
Mhm. Dwight, you said you have an answer.
Um, I totally agree with Miss Vernita. It does affect everyone. Hence, shameless plug. That's the reason for my book. It's called The Ripple Effect because there are ripple effects that affects the whole community. I believe that domestic violence is just not isolated to just that family. I mean, you look at the research and you see how domestic violence can affect other ways. If you have a child that comes from an abused home, that child may grow up to be aggressive. That child may grow up to have problems in school. Him having problems in school could lead to fights in school where he beats another child up. That affects somebody in the home. It could be how it affects the female child, where if she is in coming from a domestic violence family, she may choose that same kind of man. She may choose that same kind of man because that's the man that she likes, that she's seen, and that's the man that she's more comfortable with and more familiar with. Well, what like I said, the research tells us that the age gap, the age 16 to 22 is the fastest growing populations for domestic violence. You know what else also tells us that teen pregnancy is high. So not only are you, making, other issues as far as domestic violence, but you're creating other domestic violence relationships with that too, because you're creating children that has that look at that relationship as something to, as something that's familiar to them.
Mhm.
So, like I said, it's just not a isolated to that specific family. Like I said, I think advocating for domestic violence is a community effort.
I
Absolutely.
completely agree. I
Totally.
completely agree. Go ahead and plug that book one more time.
That's it.
It's called The Ripple Effect: The Lasting Effects of Domestic Violence. You can find it on Amazon.
Please do. I'll,
Yes.
Dwayne, Dwayne is diligent now. Come on. Let's go.
One of the things that I like that you brought up, Dwayne, and I'll address Vernita, is that you mentioned different forms of abuse. We talked, and I don't think people realize. I think people just see abuse as just physical, but you have
Right.
physical, financial abuse, mental abuse, and emotional abuse.
Right.
And I like that you brought that up,
And spiritual.
Oh
huh?
yeah,
And
and
spiritual.
spiritual.
And spiritual abuse. Do you want to? So we can pretty much get the physical. Do you want to? You ever talk about the spiritual and the financial?
Miss Vernita.
Dwayne.
Oh,
Oh,
for me?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
you
okay.
first.
Okay. So which one you want to talk about there? Which one?
You want because you brought up spiritual, so we'll go with spiritual for you, and I'll ask Miss Vernita about financial. So when you talk about spiritual abuse, what do you mean, and explain to us how deep that goes.
Oh man, it goes it goes real deep. So when I was doing research for my book, I started to, like I said, start to see patterns and stuff like that. And you started to see other patterns where that a lot of church members or a lot of the church leaders are abusers.
hmm.
Um, and that not only are they abusers, that a lot of them don't say anything to the leaders that are abusing their wives at home. They will convict you. For a woman, they will convict you to stay in that marriage. They'll use
Mhm.
scriptures where it'll tell you that the man is the head of the household. You're supposed to submit to your husband, but they conveniently leave out, other parts of the scriptures and stuff like that. So that's why I said it goes deep because it goes deep because it's not about it doesn't become about the word. It becomes about perverting the word to make it fit your narrative as a church leader or as a husband that's abusing their wife.
So that's yeah. I see you, Bernita. I see. I saw you ready to comment, but I was
Look,
gonna say
I'm
first. The first time I
a,
spoke in Charlotte, um, the one of the speakers, she was a preacher or is a pastor or something. I can't remember which one. And you know what she said? She said the black church is killing us, Dwayne. She said the black church is killing us because they're making us or making it feel like we gotta stay with that man through no matter what. Women go to their pastors and their preachers for help, and then they pull out a scripture telling you why you should stay in that abusive relationship. Whoa, that thing when she said it, it just boggled my mind blew up. The black church is killing us. Go ahead, Vernita.
so let me say this because I am a minister, and I will tell anybody. I remember when we done our marital counseling. I was told all this stuff that I'm supposed to do for my husband and da 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 whatever. So I'm gonna say to anybody, I don't care what you study, read that scripture deep, baby. Read it real deep. Because if you search that scripture a little farther, it also say a man should love his wife the way that Christ loved the church. Christ won't tan a head up. Okay? He won't, listen, and this is real personal. A lot of times pastors won't tell you to leave. They use scripture to keep you there because they're doing the same thing at home. So it's hard to tell you to leave when I'm being my wife and she's still staying. So now when y'all get in y'all little cuddles and your little sister gatherings, or the men get over here in that men gathering, okay? I don't want you to go tell my wife, well, Pastor said to leave. Because she might look at you funny. Well, Pastor just beat me last night, but I still have to play this position, because I'm the preacher's wife or whatever. But I done an event about 2 years ago, and it was called Leave Beyond the Walls. Meaning, a lot of people think that the only way that you can lead is within the church, those four walls. You got to do more than just be in between those four walls. That's why he has the fivefold, where you go out, you got evangelists, you got apostles, you got all that. Everybody is not just in that building. And if that's the only place that you got to The B to give me a word, baby, you can't give me one.
Mm. Woo.
Spiritual
Okay.
abuse, they will use the word against you. I don't care what you study. If they gotta use it against you, find you somewhere else to go.
Ooh, you're taking me to the king, Auntie. You're taking me to the king. So go ahead and tell us about how deep financial abuse is and what does it mean?
So part of my story is when my first husband and I was together. Let me make that clear because the one that I got now is a king, okay? But my first husband, um, one of the things he done was he controlled my finances. And I didn't see anything wrong with it. You know, we had a joint bank account. I had no access to the bank account, okay? None. I had got in several car accidents, and so I was not broke by any means. So I'm one of those that came out financially well, but I did not understand how financially well I was, okay? So my paycheck would go in, he would allowance me $200 a month. I worked, everything went in, he took care of all the bills. When we separated, I didn't know how to pay any bills. He had total control over all the finances. And fast forward to the day that the his um people came to help me leave, they took me to the bank. And the lady said to me, so let me also say this, in the state of North Carolina, when you're married and you get a large settlement, your spouse has to sign with you. I didn't know that until my attorney called and they asked, are you married? Yes. Well, your husband has to come along with you. Wow. He wasn't even in the car. He signed, we put the money in the bank account, and that's all I knew. We had joint accounts. And of course, he put his name on that account because of the amount of money that was in it. But when I went to the bank that day, I showed proof that it was me in the car accident and my daughter. And that's how they released the funds to me. If
Mm.
not, I would have walked away broke and he would have had all the funds for me and my daughter.
Wow.
All I knew, he gave me $200 a month of my money, even the money that I earned working, $200 a month.
That's
And out of that
wow.
$200, I had to purchase makeup every month faithfully because my face was going to be messed up each month.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot. Babe, you have other questions?
You gonna unmute me, love?
Okay, I
All right.
did. I just did.
All right. I appreciate it. Well, first I want to say that I guess I didn't realize or think about because you know how I am about money, and I don't think anything about it. But now I understand why you either don't want your woman to work or you want to really control that money because you with the money is everything. You know, you have to eat, you have to get your your amenities, any of those things, and that's pretty scary to be physically and then have to worry about where you're gonna put your head. You can't leave. You can't get a hotel. You can't run away. You can. He got the car keys. It's it's really dark. Um, so I just wanted to add that. That's something I didn't even think about. Um, my next question is, and both of y'all can answer this, is how emotionally stressful is it keeping what's going on to yourself? Like how hard is it to go through this and be alone, basically? Because I know a lot of people are embarrassed. You don't want to tell your parents, you don't tell your job. So how did you feel, Miss Vernita, going through this as far as emotionally?
So for me, it was very emotional for me because I never seen this in my household at all. The screaming, the yelling, I never experienced that in the household. I would experience my mom pouting on the couch, but my parents never argued in front of us. Um, and so for me, it was like a dark area where, I was used to being around my family, we was really close to just feeling like he's the only one that I have. And in our community, we're taught what goes on in our household, stay in our household. And so for me, that was really deep because I didn't want to tell anyone because it was going on in our own household, nobody else's. So I felt like nobody should know. Um, it was it was one of the darkest times, for me. And then not only just going through the abuse, but losing a child in the midst of it really sent me into like depression, anxiety, panic attacks, different things like that. So on the outside, I looked well, but on the inside, I was tore slam up. But if you would have ever seen me, you'd be like, "Oh, okay," because my makeup was right. If I had a black eye, I had my hair. I always kept my hair long, so I covered, or I throw on a wig and just twist it the right way. Um, but on the inside, even on the outside, looking good, on the inside, I was tore slam up, emotionally gone. But yeah, so I would say to anybody, don't go through this alone. It's so many organizations out there. It's so many people who've been through. Find a shoulder to cry on. Find somebody that you can trust, you know. And I would say to anybody, if somebody trusts you enough to come to them and come to you and tell you, don't be a running mouth, be a listening ear. They
Yeah.
already got enough going on. Just listen. You running your mouth, giving your opinion. You ain't there getting the beatings. You ain't there trying to protect your kids. You're not there trying to protect your face. Shut up, listen, and then figure out a way that you can help. But just to
Mhm.
run your mouth and say, well, if it was me, I wouldn't do this. If it was me, I wouldn't do that. You don't know the situation why I'm staying. So emotionally, I'm already gone. I don't need you to run your mouth and give your opinions. I just need you to listen and help me come out with a way, that I can get the help that I need.
Yeah. I have this thing where if you can't be of help, then don't be of hindrance either. Dwight, you want to go ahead and answer that same question?
Question was how did domestic violence affect a person emotionally?
And why don't you, what was it, love? Why don't you talk about it or tell people about it?
Why do you
Um,
think what go ahead, Dwight.
I'm a mute. Oh, I'm
Uh,
sorry. I thought you were going to ask the question again.
okay, so let me do this again. So it says, so I'm saying how do you feel emotional stress? How do you feel emotional stress um affects them, and especially when they feel like they're going through it themselves. So how do you think it takes a toll on their mind, their spirit, physically? What do you think happens?
Well, I mean, you got to think about how bad physical abuse is, how bad domestic violence is as far as the physical part of it. You have someone who who is supposed to love you no matter what. But they're also beating you. They're also physically abusing you, violating your trust, cheating on you. All that has a mental toll it takes on a person. There's only so much physical abuse somebody can take versus and emotional abuse that somebody can take. It manifests into stuff like anxieties, bipolar, PTSD, addiction problems, um, suicide attempts, just a total mental breakdown of a person's. Hold on, right quick. My producer comes in here. Okay, okay, okay. Go in your room. I'll fix it. Close my door. Close my door. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, my producer came in. But
All
yeah,
right.
but yeah, those things are always affecting. It has a mental toll on a person. So you start seeing stuff that manifests in other ways. You see it. You also see it. Manifesting. If you have children, it manifests in them where they act out in school, where they have different social problems or interaction problems and stuff like that. And it just has a total different feeling as far as that. But see, that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to do to pull you. It's pull you back and forth, manipulate your feelings, manipulate your emotions. That's what domestic violence is. That's what an abuser does. He does that just for that, to keep you off key, off tilter, because of that.
Hmm. I completely agree. Um, and also, I want people to know, because I learned this again doing my training for Democrat DCRC, is that North Carolina laws are really horrible when it comes to protecting a victim. You just because you go to court to get, I'm sorry, what's the word? I can't even think of the word right now. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen. A restraining order. Just because you go to get a
Restraining order.
restraining order, it does not mean that you're going to get one. And then when it comes to, if you tell them, okay, they have a gun in the house, if the police go and say, without a warrant, especially say, do you have a gun in the house? If that guy or woman says no, it's nothing the police can do about it. If that gun is not registered, and 9 times out of 10 it's not, they can say no, and it's no proof that they have a gun other than that victim's word. North Carolina is not the best state. A lot of the laws are really old school. They do not cater to, uh, especially women of color. They don't cater to black men, and they don't really cater to the LGBTQ community. I said that because, Vernita, I know you have the statistics of domestic violence in North Carolina. You want to go ahead and give us those?
So, I pay close attention to it. So I just want to paint this picture. January through um, July, there was only 39. Okay. Um, January through September 6th, it went up to 40. After September the 6th, we're now at 49. Three of them has happened in my hometown where I live at. Three. So they can, if you want to keep the statistics, you can always go to North Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence. They always, and these are, and so let me make sure I make this clear. These are the incidents that they had paperwork trailing that it was a
Mm-hmm.
domestic violence situation. Okay. So these are the ones that were reported and have prior
Right.
reports. So just imagine how many have not been reported as domestic violence.
Thank you so much for that. That's really sad. White, do you have any statistics for us?
Um, yeah, one of the alarming stats that I always keep in mind for is that it's 1 in 4 abuse happens in 1 in 4 women, and a new one that I found is 1 in 7. Uh, the reason why I keep that in mind is because I was going to go speak at a church event, and I said that staff, and I looked at everyone that was in my front row. I looked at everyone that was in my front row, and I said, "There's one." There was 10 women. There was 10 women that was in there, and I said, "If you look down your row, if you look down your pew, someone, the next," or I said, every other person that's in your row has been affected by domestic violence, not knowing that 5 women that were sitting on that row had been affected by domestic violence. So I always keep that in mind, and then I always keep this one too is that 75% of all women that leave are murdered by their abusers when they leave and return. Because when you're leaving, and the other one is that it takes a woman 7 times to leave before she's officially
Yep.
gone for good.
Yeah.
That's one too. Those two I usually bring those in too because they're usually on the same. If you're going to leave, it usually takes a minute for someone to actually leave a relationship. When she finally gets had enough, I'm leaving, I'm completely gone. It ends. It could end. There's 75% chance of it ending deadly.
Hmm. Yeah. Uh, Jay, did you want to say anything? I just got you off of mute.
Um, yeah. Well, what I would want to say is that I think we really this whole conversation is really, especially with our community. Vernita touched on it, um, about keeping it to yourself, the spiritual scenario. Um, Dwayne talking about like the statistics on it, and I just think that the reason, to be honest with you guys, my wife had asked me a while back to talk about it, and I realized that, not that I was ashamed of it, but it was just that it's just such an uncomfortable conversation, and I needed to be the voice so that people could hear my experience. And when Dwayne talked about men not talking about it, I felt like it is a stigma. Like, I felt like most people think that a man can restrain a woman, and so why would you be abused? Um, I just, there's so many different layers, and I think people really need to do, like Benita said, listen, and just be there. I think support is a major issue.
I definitely agree, love. And on that note, I want to ask just one more question on my half that I can think of anyway. And I want to start with you, Dwayne, because again, you have a uniqueness about you in that you also include men in your dialogue of advocating for domestic violence victims. So my question is for you is how do you encourage male victims to share their stories, seek help, or file charges?
Um, uh, I seek help by well, I try to reach out to if there is a family member, a female family member that I can reach out to and talk to them. Talking to them straight up, they may ignore it. They may ignore it. But if your mother tells you that there's something dangerous that's out there, you kind of listen. If your sister told you there's something that's dangerous that's out there, you will kind of listen. So I try to reach out to, a family member that's a female to implore them that once domestic violence starts, it only escalates. Like I said, it only escalates. It may start with a finger, but it may end with a gun, or it may end with a knife. Um, and don't think that just because you're a man that it couldn't happen to you. There are plenty of people that are in like Miss Vernita said that she looked at the deaths that happened in North Carolina. I did a digital vigil last year for my book, and I looked at the names of men that had been killed in domestic violence. Um, and it wasn't just like sprinkle here or there. It was a lot. It was a lot. So it's just not women that's going through it. It's men that go through it. So like I said, I try to, I give them, numbers. I give them, scenarios. I give them, circumstances. I give them, information. Um, but like I said, my generation, it's kind of hard to get, in contact, not in contact, but it's kind of hard to get them to accept it. But like I said, I try to reach out to a female family member, and let them know that, hey, look, this is not going to get any better. He might need help getting out of it, getting out of this situation.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Give me a second because I'm going to ask you one more question. Well, I'm asking both of y'all. Just give me one moment. All right, Vernita, what's the same question for you? How do you encourage a woman to, to leave, to seek help, to possibly press charges?
So first of all, I listen to them, and you know, um, sometimes I have to go back and just allow them to know I'm not just an advocate, but I'm also a survivor. Sometimes that helps them to open up more because now they don't feel like everybody in the room don't understand. Sometimes you have to meet them where they are, and because I've been there, and you know, I was that person that didn't want help because I was ashamed of what people was gonna say. So I will let them know it's okay. This is a process. I don't lie to them and tell them, well, this is an overnight process. It, I can't do that. I take them through, take them through everything. And I also allow them to know, even if you take out a protection order, understand you have to change the way you do some things. Because if you go to work and you make a right out of that parking lot, or you park on the first row, you come out every day at 5:03.
Mhm.
We, as I always say, we pillow talk, so we kind of tell our partners, everything.
Yeah.
And that right there sometimes can be the most dangerous thing ever. Because if he know your routine, he know, or she know your routine, she knows how you, when you walk out, whatever. Sometimes you have to switch up things. If you got more than one exit to come out of work, go out the opposite exit. Change up your way of living. When you're leaving an abusive relationship, your life changed forever. So they have to understand a protection order is a piece of paper. It do not say that if he go purchase a gun or she go purchase a gun, that it's gonna save your life. It gives you documentation, but I always tell them, do the necessary steps. I'm
Mhm.
here if you need me. I'm here any time of night. I will listen. Um, I'm never gonna just tell you, oh, just walk away, because it's not easy. I don't know why you're there. But if I shut my mouth and I listen, you're going to give me enough information where we can build a safety plan for you to help you get out of that situation.
And I also want to add too that many people don't think about is your social media. I tell this to victims of sexual assault, rape, DV. Check your social media. We don't think about it, right? But it does the abuser or perpetrator, are they friends with you on social media? Are they friends with your family? Are they friends with your friends? You need to delete, block, and restart your whole page if you have to. And people don't think about that. But your abuser could be friends with your people. You haven't told your people tell him or she where you at, him or her where you
Right.
at. So you got to check your social media pages. Love, you got anything you want to say before I finish it off in a moment?
No, absolutely. Just uh, I like not just your social media, and I guess what I want people to, male or female, is that you have nothing to be ashamed of. The person that's doing that to you is the one that should be ashamed, and they have a power over you. And so start figuring out a way to say something to someone, and once you start, hopefully that will open you up. And so my message to anybody that has a temper, don't don't look to your spouse or anybody else for that blame. You need to get yourself help, because that temper is going to manifest into abuse because
Mhm.
rage, violence, demanding things are all connected. So I just hope that what we have done is at least make somebody aware that you're not alone, and there is somebody that can help.
Oh yeah, definitely indeed. Making that move could save somebody else's life. So Dwight and Vernita, before we get ready to go, I want you guys to share any resources you have for those in North Carolina, outside of North Carolina.
Say that again, Cece, because I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Whatever resources you may have for victims or for those who are the abusers, any resources, anything you may have for them.
So there is a national 800 number for domestic violence. We all have Google. People can Google that. Um, you can also reach out to our organization. If you type in "breaking the silence on domestic violence," all our information will show up there. Um, Also, if you're going through domestic violence, no matter what city or state you're in, if you're in the county, you can reach out to your local sheriff department because they have a victims advocate, and the local police department has a victim advocate that specializes in domestic violence. Reach out. Um, Now there is a chat where you can chat. So, whatever way that you can get yourself to safety, do it. All you have to do is Google, and it will give you the numbers and everything to chat. And they will make sure that you're in a safe environment.
Okay, and so before I say goodbye to you, I want you to go ahead and give the audience your information if you want to share and let them know about your books that you have.
Me?
Yes, Auntie.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so again, you can find us on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. It's all under Breaking the Silence on Domestic Violence. Um, I do have three books. One is called Pain of Powerful. It's where two cousins entwined to get well, two cousins are going through domestic violence, sexual assault with their cousin who pretends to be their friend. But anyway, he assaults them. He sexually assaults them, domestic violence, everything is in there. And because of the family generational curses that was not broken, the grandma has been through it, everybody. So all my books are on Amazon. That one's called Pain of Powerful, and I also have a journal for a woman called a Queen's Journal, and I also have one for a man called a King's Handbook. All right, Dewayne.
Okay, well, thank you. Me and Jay, thank you so much for
Appreciate
coming onto the show and educating our audience. And you know I'm gonna text you tomorrow.
it.
Yes. All right, you guys be blessed. Bye.
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 Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
All right, Dwight. So I forgot what I asked Vernita that fast. My memory is so horrible.
You asked her
Um,
about her info and any resources
oh
that
yes,
he will
thank
might.
you. Info and resources you have.
Well, I pretty much operate here in Durham. So there's a Durham Crisis Response Center. Um, I know that there is families moving forward. There is other shelters like the let me see here, other homeless shelters in Durham. If you need national assistance, there's the National Coalition of Domestic Violence. Um, there is, like I said, your local city and county, as far as sheriffs and city police officers in Durham. There is a special victims unit in Durham. I know the sheriffs are trained in domestic violence as well here in Durham. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Facebook, C. Dewayne Hinnant. You can find me on Instagram at C. Dewayne Hinnant. And like I said, my book is on Amazon. The name of it is The Ripple Effect, The Lasting Effects of Domestic Violence.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much for coming on our show. We really do appreciate you and helping us educate the world.
Absolutely. Very informative. I mean, I really appreciate.
Yes. And I'll
Oh,
reach out to
also too, I just want to say there is a vigil that's going on Thursday, and I think the building is called Re-City. It's on Broad Street. Or no, it's on. Let me see what street it's on. Hold on. Just had it here. Yeah, it's the building. It's Re-City. Let me see, it's a co-op work group building. It's at 112 Broad Street, Suite B in Durham, and it starts at 7 p.m. on Thursday, October the 15th.
Okay. So I'm going to, and I'm going to reach out to you tomorrow so I can send you the link in case you want to plug this, what this episode today.
Okay,
Thank you so much for being on our show, and I will reach out to you tomorrow.
no problem. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate
Bye.
you. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
So, love, I think this
Woo.
is like a really good. Yeah, it's like my emotions are like
Yeah, this
so,
was a lot, man. This was definitely it was emotional. I mean, this was different. I mean, I learned some stuff that I didn't even think about, you know?
me too. Me too. And I'm happy we were able to do this. Thank you so much for being, becoming comfortable enough to discuss it. And hopefully, we saved somebody's life and educated somebody as well. So I can't hear you because you have taken out your earbuds. Okay, y'all, we having technical difficulties. But we thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you will share this video and that you have learned from it and will help somebody else. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye.